I'm Cyrièle Piancastelli, but my colleagues call me Pancake, so you can call me Pancakes if it's complicated, no worries. I'm a senior user experience architect at the BBC. I joined the BBC a year and a half ago. Since I joined the BBC, I've been working on a project called myBBC, and more specifically on the BBC account, so the identity management platform. So what is BBC Accounts? It's all about you. It's an identity management platform. It's the space on the BBC website where all users can access, add and edit their personal details and preferences for all BBC products, digital products. It's the front-end, user-facing expression of one of the main BBC goals, which is to provide an accurate and customizable BBC service that caters for everyone. This is a huge challenge because of the amount of content that the BBC serves every day, and also because of the proportion of people using BBC services every day. How did we achieve this? By allowing personalization of BBC products, and by using these user preferences in a clever way in order to provide a tailor-made service for each of our users. So enabling personalization of products. Every signed-in BBC users who didn't turn off personalization, every time they interact with one piece of content, sometimes implicitly by consumption, they are feeding our system. So basically when you're playing a video on iPlayer, for example, you're telling us, I've played this clip. If you're reading an article, you're telling us you're reading this article. So you're engaging with this piece of content, and we can assess your interest. There are some more explicit interactions that you could do. So for example, still on iPlayer, you could follow a program or follow an artist on BBC Radio, and you could click another button for example, bookmarking an episode if you want to get back to it, or when you're watching this on iPlayer, for example. So our ambition is to ensure meaningful links between all types of BBC content. So by assessing your engagement with content and by being able to create links between different pieces of content, we would like to create, like a net and being able to serve you cross-media, cross-platform, cross-product content and recommendations. Another thing that the BBC Accounts provides is ensuring users the privacy of the data with the privacy. So, as any service provider gathering users' data, the BBC has to follow some very strict privacy policies, and the company takes this very, very seriously. Every single piece of information which is required is used to improve the BBC experience for our users. Thanks to the application I worked on, BBC users will have full control over the data, and they will be able to add, edit, or delete each and every piece of it. Also, it's important to add that the BBC will never sell any piece of users' data with third parties, and we will never give your personal details to anyone outside the BBC without your consent, which sometimes make the user experience architecture quite tricky. For example, we are working with a third-party company for our customer service, and because we're not able to provide them with information as for who is that person having a problem, where does that person come from, which process they went through, the flow that we had to design was a bit complicated, but it's really worth it. Now I'm going to talk about what happens behind the scenes. So how did we make this complexity invisible? Almost all of the UK uses BBC services every day. So as a user experience designer, this makes my job really, really, really interesting. That's the broadest audience I ever had a chance to work with. So my designs have to cater for literally everyone's needs. For example, we had to design and to develop a non-JS version of the application. So at first I thought, why would we spend so much time and effort designing for non-JS users? They are less than 1% of our audience. But if you look at the numbers, 97% of the population of the UK, I'm not even talking about international here, 97% of the population of the UK interacts with BBC services every week. Amongst those people, 65% of them use BBC digital services. So it's roughly 40 million people who who are using our services every week. So 1% of 40 million people is still 400k users. And we're a public service. We need to be accessible to everyone. So we can't really afford preventing those people from having a BBC experience. From a data point of view as well, it's been complex. Because from a dataset point of view, our signed-in BBC users are classified according to their age group. So this allows us to be compliant with legal requirements, especially regarding users who are under 18 years old. With this new BBC account, the security around data privacy has improved a lot. So not only do users get more control over the data, our youngest audience, people under 13 years old, who uses myBBC, for example, require parental or guardian permissions to perform some specific actions, such as commenting or receiving notifications. So this implies different sets of data depending on profiles, and the different user experience based on the age, and the age is something that evolves in time, so it has to adapt. So this is an extract of a document I created when I started working on this project. This only shows the different data sets, different data requirements for users under 13 years old. So I'm not even talking about 13 to 15, 15 to 17 and over 18 years old. And as you can see, depending on what they want to do, just having an account in the BBC, having an account and being able to comment, having an account and receiving notifications, the set of data is different. For kids under 13 years old, it's quite interesting because some of their data requirements implies that they need to have a parent approval, so they also need to have a parent account, over 18 years old account, linked to their accounts to give them some of the permissions. So basically what it means is that those data sets are different, depending what you want to do, depending on user profiles, and some are depending on each other, which is quite complex. Oops. The state of the art as well. When we started working on the BBC account, we knew where we wanted to go from a data point of view, because we were launching the 5th version, IDB5. But we didn't really know where we were, like what was the state of the art. We were working with a legacy of years and years of changes and as many different data sets. So just a quick example. We used to allow people to sign in with social signing. So basically when you sign in with Google or Facebook, we don't own any of the data, we don't own your email address or whatever. Everything is stored on the social media sites. So it means that those users, we had literally no information at all about them, which is really, really different from the users who signed up from the BBC website. So different set of data. So our account upgrading process to go from where we were to where we wanted to go had to be flexible and comprehensive, which is a problem maze to work out from a user experience architecture point of view, and also a fantastic challenge. So how did we achieve this? By defining a clear goal and values for the product. It has been keys to the success of this project, and it allows us to define a direction for our application. Teamwork has been really important as well. As a team, we work toward the same objective, creating an identity management application that would empower users and enable personalization in order to create value for the user. On top of this common goal, our team's way of working shared the BBC values, which are trust, audiences first, quality, creativity, and respect. Applied to our application, it means data security and privacy, personalized content, accessibility, and empowerment. In other words, any piece of information requested from the user is safely stored, used for the user's best interest, in order to increase the quality of the use of BBC services, and also BBC users will have control over each piece of information they provide. So despite the challenges and occasional confusion that all of those requirements represented, always going back to our objective and values helped us to work out what the best solution was. This is a very simple example of how I felt the project went. When I first been told what it was about, like we want to create an identity management platform, people are going to be able to store their preferences, personal details. Okay, so we are here, we want to go there. Super straightforward, it's a simple line. But then, as I dig a bit more into the projects, I realized that, well, not every user was at the same place. So we had many different starting points, basically. Then I met some people, very nice people from legal, some of the nice people from engineering, and some of the nice people from business, basically other BBC products. And they all had different requirements and different needs. So because I was trying to understand and work for everyone's needs, sometimes, I mean, those needs didn't really work together, so I lost the direction where I wanted to go. But thanks to the values of our products and the objective we had, and then the direction of our products, we managed to basically create a path that goes from anywhere, can take into account all the requirements from legal, engineering, and business, which is a very flexible path. And this is what our users see. It's really straightforward for them, thanks to their user experience. So given the amount of unknowns and requirements, sometimes conflicting with each other, I often felt like my job was to knock on doors, hit walls instead, and try to find windows which I could negotiate my way through. It took resilience, patience, not really patient, interest in areas that may not seem your responsibility in the first place, and ability to negotiate or compromise. We used the data we wanted as a goal. We used the data we had to create the right user experience architecture, and this user experience architecture eventually helped us to improve the overall quality of the data. What I really enjoyed here is that it's a loop basically. We had some data at the beginning, we had some requirements, it helped us working on the information architecture. With this we created the user experience architecture and we could get better data. So this is an example of a flow I worked on for what we call the policy of the uplift journey. So when you're a V4 user and you go to V5. I'm not going to go into too much details, but just you can see the complexity of it. All of our users start here. They have to sign in. Then we check if they went through this process already or not. We check if we know how old they are, because depending on the age, they belong to a different profile and they have a different set of data requirements. Then we build this page, which depends on the profile and the details that we already own about that person and the ones which are missing. And we do many tests. All those tests are going to create this form page. And then, depending on the state the user was in before and the state it was after, some of them had to change their credentials, which is a big move. So we had to remind them that from now on, they're going to have to use different credentials. We had different versions of the thank you page, the last page. And after doing this, the user was successfully uplifted to the V5 version. When I started working on the project, I thought, yeah, fine. I'm just going to build forms. It's going to be simple. But it's not that simple, actually. When you look at this, I think it's quite self-explanatory. We also use the data to learn more. So our application will improve as we gather more and more data about how our audience is using our flows. We measure success rates, pain points, drop-off, and we study with care every message sent to our customer service in order to improve the current experience. So for example, we have a journey that allows children to link their account to their parent's account so that their parent can give them permissions to comment, for example. And we didn't have a really good number of children with permissions in the end. So we had a look at the data, and we realized that a lot of people hit an error page, parents hit an error page, when they try to confirm the link. And the reason behind this, what we realized by watching the data, is that for under 13 years old user, they are using the same device in the entire family. And because we don't have right now a feature that allows users to switch accounts easily, when they clicked on the link to give the permissions, it was still the child who was signed in. So the the application was returned in an error because that was the wrong user. So that's something that the data gave us an insight here to improve the user experience, and it made us consider some other routes. We did a workshop with CBBC and CBB's UX team, and we designed a feature to switch accounts. We also even thought about creating family accounts, like a bit like Netflix. But whatever is going to be implemented in the end is going to have to match our values, our project objective, and it's going to be tested, of course. The challenges I faced with this project. The first one was what we call pan-BBC thinking. Because this identity management application is at the crossroads of all the other BBC products. All of them want to create value based on personalization, and all of them rely on our application to do this. But our ambition is a bit more than just being an enabler. We also have to make sure that the data stored by products, through our processes, through our application, and using our journeys, is meaningful, and that its meaning is shared across all BBC products. Making every product care for the impact of the meaning the data they collect will have in downstream systems or other products has been a challenge as well. Because it makes product consider constraints that beyond them and which have impact in their roadmaps. Basically, you're giving them more work for something that they can't really see the impact in their own product. So this is where data governance plays a fundamental role in a company, by raising awareness around the full life cycle of every single piece of data stored at any point by any product. And I think as UXA, we really need to be what they call data stewards. So we really need to ensure and communicate about the importance of clean data and consistency of meaning. It's also been it's a contextual experience. So from a user experience point of view, we had to find the right balance in between designing flexible journeys that adapt to any situation a user could be in, and tailor-made experience adapted to each individual. In order to achieve this, we focused our efforts on providing the right context to our users. So these were users still felt like they were browsing their own product. What I have learned. Not only a user experience architect must care for data, as data is information's raw material, they also have to be able to communicate the importance of it. We are the bridge in between all the different parts that compose the business, and we need to be able to communicate the consequences of design choices to everyone, whether they are designers, engineers, product, or marketing people. So what I mean here is that on top of being a huge data challenge, it's been a huge communication challenge. Something else that I've learned is that stakeholder management is hard, but it's key. So this has been a really rich year and a half at the BBC. That's a proper stakeholder. Sorry. Thank you. So I'm really grateful that I've been given the chance to work on such an interesting and exciting project. I've learned a lot about complex information architecture and technical architecture too. But more than ever, I've learned that in a company this size, involving so many products, and stakeholder management is key. My line manager, Dan, tells me quite often that being right is only 10% of the job, and I think he is right. So when managing stakeholders with different goals and ambitions, a solid framework driven by user-centric principles is the best asset to highlight the benefits of following the original product direction. User testing reports, MVT and analytics reports are other assets that must be part of a UXA toolbox. Because people have opinion, systems have data, and we, UXA, with our knowledge of information architecture, we can understand the meaning of this data and we can bring out facts to improve the user experience. So today, millions of users have already been through the flows I've designed, and this is huge. On a very personal level, it blows my mind every time I think about it. On a more professional level, it also makes me realize how important it is to care for clean and meaningful data and information architecture, given the impact it has in service design, it will definitely shape the capacity of any application or product to improve and evolve in the future. And this is the core of any product strategy. Thank you. Now please go and register. I'm going to wait for your feedback to see if I make the complexity invisible. And I'm going to share an article, a written piece of this version of the talk next week.